Okay, so I was explaining you guys that there could be 5 copies of your answer, and then every time you come up with a better answer. That's how you continuously improve. Yeah, that's how you achieve the learning curve. Maybe if in one question you have 30 minutes to write and 6 minutes for plan, so total 36 minutes. But when you did that question for the first time, maybe you did it in 1.5 hours or 1 hour or so. So you need to achieve that learning curve. Okay, and how you're going to do that? Maybe for one question you do it for like 5 times, 6 times until you actually achieve it. Okay, and then you're able to finish the question in 36 minutes. Yeah, with the 6 minutes of reading and planning time. Okay, so practice makes the man perfect, and this paper you can only pass with practice. And every day make different milestones for, as the course progresses. So initially just start with every day whatever topic you're studying. Okay, initially it would be advanced costing techniques. Firstly, you're going to start with advanced costing technique. That's the first syllabus area. That this is what it is right in front of me, and I'm going to take you through the individual topics under that main area. So advanced costing technique, I told you it would be assessed in section A and section B. So when you're going to start your course, first you're going to go through these costing techniques. So section C, you won't be able to practice section C. Like maybe in second week you start practicing section C when you will start the budgeting area, and then later on variances and performance. That's how it goes. So just when you start with this, get get versed with section A type questions and section B multitask question that you might have attempted in F1, F2, and F3. As you come with the budgeting part, then on daily basis, make it a habit on daily basis to at least attempt. Maybe initially you may start with 10 MC section A type questions and try to do two of section B, whichever topic you're doing, two of section B type questions, and at least one section C type questions in which you properly evaluate your answer with match your answer with the examiner answer and marking scheme, and then evaluate yourself. Okay, so this should be the frequency as you start, and later on maybe you can increase multitask questions, maybe MCQs to 15 and multitask questions to at least 3 to 5 multitask questions, and section C type questions as well, maybe 2 to 4. Okay, as you progress with your course. Okay, so practice will make you perfect. For practice will let learning the right technique, and practice will help you pass PM in first. So now we're going to look into the individual topics in each of these areas, and later on I'm going to share the tips and techniques with you. Costing in costing technique, you're going to go through the absorption and marginal costing, and then another absorption costing method is ABC costing. You're already familiar with that. If you have read F2, never mind if you didn't come from that. If you directly jumped into directly picking this applied skill paper, don't worry. My course actually starts from the scratch. I actually start building your concepts right from the scratch. Don't worry if you have never done a spreadsheet. Don't worry. My classes would actually teach you everything right from the scratch. So don't worry, you haven't done F2, ma'am is talking about F2. Don't worry, we'll actually start from scratch. But I'm telling you, these topics, target life cycle costing, are actually you have done in F2. Okay, so revision for those and the one who are taking it for the first time, we're going to go through. Throughput and environmental is new topics in from the costing techniques area. Okay, from budgeting, you guys are, if you have done F2, definitely you guys are familiar with planning and different methods of planning. Yeah, fixed budgets and then rolling budgets, which are known as continuous budgets. You guys might have done that. For example, updating budgets every quarterly or monthly, continuously, but fixed annual budget is that you follow for the entire year. And then there are different uh, uh, more budgets that you, based upon activity based costing, you're going to budget for every activity. Okay, based upon the output you will see what input requirements, and for every activity you're going to set budget for that, which is activity based costing. Then you may start What is an incremental budget? In incremental budget, you take from the last year budget as your base or your current year figures, and then you see what is adjust inflation, and then you see is there any known change, and then same figures. You don't start from the scratch, and same figures you you make those figures as a part of your next year budget. For example, you're budgeting for labor cost. Labor cost was 50,000. You know the inflation is 10%. Okay, and known changes that this one employee has actually left the company. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust the budget. That's what the incremental budget. I haven't started it from the scratch. I've just add the increments on the top of the budget, adjust the inflation, and I've adjusted the inflation and known change. So how I'm going to do that? For example, 50,000 was the I took the last year base. 10,000 known change, employee left the company, so 40,000, and then just adjust the inflation into 1.1, 10% adjust the inflation. And now the budget for next year would be 44,000. It is quick and easy. Okay, in budgeting question, I told you it's more of a theory. 60% is theory and 40% is calculation. So theory is very tested. Yes, it's pretty much tested in planning. So you need to, at times, it can ask you what would be the right approach for the company of the budget, whether incremental budget or whether if it's a dynamic environment, definitely a continuous fixed budget wouldn't be the right one when the environment is changing. You need to update the budget, maybe quarterly or maybe monthly if it is very, environment is very uncertain. So I cannot prescribe a rolling budget for, I can prescribe an incremental budget for a stable business, but I cannot prescribe a rolling budget for a stable business. And for a dynamic business, this would be the best one. At times, when you need to cut down the cost and the company is going towards rationalization, or at times for a discretionary fixed cost, it is good to start budget right from the scratch, right? For example, if I'm preparing a budget for research and development, if I'm for trainings, okay, which is the discretionary fixed cost for advertisement or for any service department in an organization, like a canteen, like a maintenance department. Yeah. So I know there wouldn't be a lot of. So I need to know that I need to bring the cost down. So maybe I can start the budget from scratch. I can start the budget from a blank piece of paper where I didn't start from any of the base. Okay, if labor cost I was supposed to do in a zero based budgeting, it would have started from a zero base. And then you justify what needs to be added, whether it's what is the purpose of that, you need to justify it, what could be the alternate ways of doing that activity. Okay, so you need to come up with different decision packages, and then finally you prove one. Okay, and then you implement the budget. So that's what the zero budgeting is all about. You haven't done it in F2, these two budgeting, but you are somewhat familiar about that. That's another thing which is learning curve. That's another topic, because when you're doing anything which is not being done on machine, for example, you're producing anything manually. Okay, so as you get familiar with the product, you eventually get faster, and budgets will get affected because it's about the labor time, how much time you need to produce one unit, and how much would be the labor cost for that. So for such type of a thing, maybe I start producing a product and maybe I take 8 hours. But after producing 500 units, or after doing, for example, about 10 batches of that similar product, I will ultimately get to learn it. And maybe I reduce the time for one unit now. At times the time is reducing, but there comes a time when it actually stops. And from that is the right time where you can set a standard for one unit, when the learning actually stops. So for example, the learning actually stops when you, after the 50th unit. So talking about the budget, if I'm going to make the budget based upon 8 hours, don't you think my production planning, my labor cost, all don't you think my budget would go wrong? Definitely, because that's not the time you're taking for one unit. Now you have actually learned the process. Now you're faster, and now you're only for one unit you're only taking 2 hours. So now this, upon this, you would set your budget. So that's a very important concept that is which is learning curve that we're going to do in budgeting area. Okay, when it's about and flexible budget, you are familiar about it. It helps you to calculate variances with like comparison. Okay, you compare the budgeted result with the actual, and it helps you to calculate the variances. Where you set the standard for actual activity level and you compare the cost with actual activity level. Okay, that's what we're going to discuss everything. Now, next is the control. You start with the basic variances that you have covered in F2. Okay, first we will revise. Okay, and for those who haven't done F2, we will actually start coming up with the whole process of what a variance is all about, starting from the flex budget towards calculation of total variances and then the sub variances. Okay, for example, if I tell you the material price variance, so if I tell you about material cost variance, okay, I wasn't able to achieve my budgeted cost. What could be the reason for that? First of all, I will calculate the total variance. For example, the cost should have been 10,000, but the cost was 12,000 and the total variance was 2,000 adverse. Now I need to dig down the reason for that total variance. Why I wouldn't meet the budget? Maybe I used more kgs than what was the standard, or another thing could be the price. Maybe the rate I got 1 kg was pricey than that the standard. That could actually make the difference between the budgeted cost or the actual cost. So in order to assess what is the reason for this total variance of 2000, I need to calculate the sub variances as well, which would be material price variance and material usage variance. So what part of it is due to, for example, I come to know that 1000 adverse is due to price and 1000 adverse is due to usage. So I actually know that I have used more than the standard and also I bought the material more than the standard. That's why I wasn't able to achieve the budgeted cost and my actual cost was more, 2000 more than the budgeted cost. So that's about calculating the total variance comes from the flex budget. Okay, what the cost for the actual activity level should have been and what the cost was for the actual activity level have actually been, and then investigating the variances. Why with control, what we actually tend to do, we actually tend to improve our performance, future performance. So until end we need to take corrective action. Until unless we don't know what is the bottleneck or what is the problem going on, and until unless we don't investigate the total variance into sub variances, that this is due to price and this much is due to usage, definitely we won't be able to know what has been going wrong and we won't be able to take the corrective action and we won't be able to improve our performance. If you're not achieving a target, you need to understand what happened wrong, and then you need to fix that thing so that it doesn't happen again and you actually achieve your objective. That is the role of a management accountant, right? Okay, now these are new to F5 syllabus. You haven't done that before, but basic variances you have already covered in F2, but we will start from the scratch. Okay, usage variance could be subdivided into material mix and material yield variance. We won't talk it in much detail about these variances because it's going to take a lot of time for the orientation class. But we will do, these are the sub variances of the usage variance that we will cover in control section of our paper. Okay, sales volume variance. You know that you may not be able to achieve your sales revenue target because of two reasons. One could be maybe the volumes, actual volume sold wasn't as per the budgeted volume, or maybe the selling price that you charge wasn't up to the actual price you charged wasn't as the standard price that you set at the time of the budget. So that where the sales revenue variance could come up. One could be due to price and the other one could be due to volume. Where your actual profit is not same as the budgeted profit, it could be due to volume and the other one could be due to price. Okay, volume variance, two sub variances of the sales volume variance are sales mix variance and sales quantity variance. Just like usage variance is mix and yield, so sales volume variance, where you're selling multiple products. Okay, so you in order to get more information about what is actually going wrong and to take the corrective action and to improve your performance, you need to subdivide the variances into sales mix and sales quantity variance. We are selling more than one products, right? A, B, C, yeah, and there's a standard mix. And for usage variance, if there's one material, usage variance is fine, which tells you that that what is the reason of your adverse material cost or favorable material cost. But if there are more than one material being used and those are interchangeable as well, that A can be used in place of B or B can be used in place of A. More than one material and material are interchangeable as well. So there you need to calculate mix and yield variance. Then there is planning and operational variances. Okay, planning and operational variances. At times, it is the adverse performance is not entirely the responsibility of a manager. For example, volume is down. Okay, volume is down. One could be due to planning, and the other one could be due to operational. Okay, one, for example, the economy is down. That's why the volume is getting down. So I need to understand what part of the variance is manager's responsibility. So I would tell you all of, we need to break the total variance into planning variance and operational variance, and manager would only be responsible for the operational part because it shows what he could control, because these are the controllable variances. So variances would be subdivided into controllable variances and uncontrollable variances, and I cannot blame the manager not being able to sell due to external factors outside the control of the manager, which are uncontrollable factors. So I won't blame manager due to uncontrollable factors, and I would only assess its performance based upon the controllable variances. That's what the controllability principle is all about. So based upon what is your responsibility, what you are responsible for, you are ultimately accountable for that, and your performance is assessed based upon that. And my performance should be fair and should only be based upon what I could control. So I would want blame. I won't blame the manager for the entire variance if something is outside his control. So I need to break the variance down into planning and operational. Planning is uncontrollable variance and operational is a controllable variance. We're going to do it in detail. You can check the demo lectures just to get the concept of that as well. Those are there on the our YouTube channel, but we will discuss it in detail. That's just an overview. So in decision making, relevant costing, whenever you're taking a decision, cost, what is you need to know what is a relevant cost. And relevant cost is a cost which arises as a direct consequence of your decision. And if you reverse your decision, your cost is actually saved. If I say I'm going to Malaysia, so I'm going to see what is the cost that would be incurred in future. I won't take into account any of the costs that I've already incurred. Any of the past or sunk cost is an irrelevant cost. So I'm just going to look at what would be the cost of my trip in Malaysia. What would be the future cost? And I'm going to see what is the cost which is incremental and which arise as a result of my decision that I'm going to Malaysia, and which is not something that I'm already incurring, so it would be unaffected. For example, I'm paying rent for my apartment. It's a committed cost. It's an irrelevant cost. I don't, when I'm costing that what would be the cost for the trip for Malaysia, even if I don't go there, that cost won't be saved. So my relevant cost would only be the cost that need to be incurred in future, incremental, and the third one is it need to be a cash flow. So what would be the cost? Maybe I will have to apply for the visa, maybe I will have to buy for the tickets, maybe I have to book a hotel, maybe I have to leave some for food, local travel, and okay, or maybe I have to keep some amount for the entertainment. So this is what going to be, I told you, mark my words, relevant cost is a cost which is future, incremental, and cash flow, which arises as a direct consequence of your decision. And if you reverse your decision, now tell me, if I reverse my decision that I'm not going to Malaysia, cost is saved as well, then that is a relevant cost. Now if I plan I'm not going to Malaysia, is it the cost that is going to be going to be saved, and is it the cost that was incurred in future? It was incremental, and it was a cash flow. It was going out of my bank statement. Okay, it had an impact on the bank statement, on the cash I have. It wasn't a non-cash item, because there are in a company there could be non-cash items as well that would be irrelevant for your decision, like depreciation cost. Okay, depreciation is wear tear of allowance that you charge against the assets, because the as you use the asset, the value actually decreases, and same as the accounting charge you charge every year, just like that. So that its worth is actually comparable to its market value. It's not overvalued. Yeah, that's what the depreciation charge. But it's not something which is going out of your pocket. It's a non-cash item. So depreciation would also be an irrelevant cost. Any cost when I reverse my decision which is not being saved, like just rental, I was paying rental, that is an irrelevant cost. That is an irrelevant cost. And cost that I've already incurred, maybe I have already incurred some cost and it is unaffected by my decision that I'm going to Malaysia or not. So any cost which is past or sunk cost would be irrelevant, committed cost would be irrelevant. So usually variable cost is irrelevant and fixed cost is an irrelevant cost, because fixed cost, it doesn't increase as a result of your decision. If I see I'm producing A, B, now I'm producing product C as well, until and unless there's no increase in the fixed cost, there's no incremental cost of the two decisions, there's no incremental cost, then that cost isn't a relevant cost. So maybe in one premises, I may be producing now product C as well. But for example, for product C, I have to hire a warehouse. And for that, I have to increase, I have to pay 20,000 rent for that. So if I talk about when I produce A and B, and now if I talk about when I produce A, B, and C together, now if I see in both options, if I see the incremental cost, for example, earlier it was 1 lakh, and now the total cost would be 1 lakh 20,000. See, is there, as a result of my decision, is there any increase in fixed cost? Is there any increase in fixed cost? Yes, there is an increase in fixed cost, which is as a direct consequence of my decision. And if I reverse my decision that I'm not going to produce C, I won't be paying rental cost for the warehouse. So that cost would be saved. So only this 20,000 would be the relevant cost for me. Okay, only this 20,000 would be relevant cost for me. For example, I'm talking about the water cost. There are two options: to keep the water park open in winters or to close it. If I see that if I open the park, the cost is 10,000, and if I close the park, the cost is 0. Do you think it's a relevant cost for me if I'm going to open the park? What is the incremental cost? Yes, definitely it would be a relevant cost for me. For example, if it's 10,000. So I need to compare both the options, and then I need to see, is there any, as a result of opening park, is there any incremental cost I will be bearing, or and when I close it, that cost would be saved. So that 10,000. But this security guard, even if I open the park, I will have to pay 10,000, and even if I close it, security guard would always be there, and I will have to pay 10,000 even then. So what would be the relevant cost if I keep the park open? It would be 0. You see, there should be change in the cost. From 0 here it went to 10,000, but here earlier it was, if I close it, it is 10,000. If I open it, it is 10,000. So there's no change in the cost. So you understand the incremental for both options, you need to weigh. For both options, you need to see whether there is any incremental cost. Then only that incremental cost would be a relevant cost. Here, the incremental cost, there's no incremental cost. So the relevant cost here in this scenario B, in case of a security guard, is 0. But in scenario A, where I'm calculating a relevant cost for water park, if I keep it open, if I close it, it's 0. If I keep it open, it's 10,000. So here the relevant cost is 10,000. Okay. So there has to be a future cost, incremental and cash flow, then it's a relevant cost. Okay, then you have to take shutdown decisions, make and buy decisions, further processing decisions. Then there's an area CVP analysis, linear programming, risk and uncertainty. It's a quite lengthy area, and it is assessed in all, and you cannot ignore any part of the syllabus. Okay, last is performance and information system. So here we will do divisional performance measurement. Okay, transfer pricing is, for example, the two division in the company trading with each other. This is A is selling goods to B. For this would be seller and this would be a buyer. So what would be the transfer price for that thing? A is selling to B. Okay, for example, B makes cars and A makes batteries for that. So B require batteries from A. It can buy batteries from outside supplier as well, but maybe it's a good policy to purchase within the company. So what would be the what is transfer price here in this case? So transfer price, what would be the price A would sell that batteries to B? For example, it is 100 per unit. So 100 per unit would be the transfer price. 100 per unit would be the transfer price. Transfer price is revenue per unit for a seller and cost per unit for a buyer. Definitely it would be revenue, 100 would be the revenue for A and cost for B, because this would be buying in cost from A, yeah, for the batteries. So there could be problems arising upon, there could be disagreements between what the price should have been. There could be quarrel or conflicts between A and B. Why? Because, for example, consider both are profit accountable, both are profit centers. Both want to increase their profit. A would like to increase the transfer price and B would like to, since it's revenue for A, but B would like to take it at a lowest cost. Because how B's profit would be increased only when its cost would be reduced. So he would like to take the unit at low cost and it would try to increase its profit by charging it more and by selling it at a high price. So then there are certain rules for transfer pricing. It's a very interesting topic, haven't done before. You would love it. Okay, so we're going to do that in detail. Then, as I told you, and I have shown you the question initially in the beginning as well, there's a question, there's a pet one question comes in section C from performance, this area. So this area is very important. Yeah. The other question could be from budget, could be from variance, yeah, could be from decision making, but pet one question definitely comes from performance because the paper is all about performance management, right? So these are the topics a question can come up from. It could be come from divisional performance measurement. A question could come from transfer pricing, could come where you need to assess the financial and non-financial performance of the company. You have done balance scorecard in your F2 exam. So question could come from balance scorecard. Question could come from, there's another model, which is a performance assessment tool for a service industry. It consists of dimension, standards, and rewards. That is known as building block model. Yeah, like for Uber, it's a service company, like for IT companies, like for any media companies. So for service industry, there are problems in performance systems. So there is another model used to assess the performance of service industry is building block model. Then information system and data analytics. So these are all the areas in the exam. Okay. Now I'm going to share with you. I've already talked about the time management, examination technique. I've already talked about that, and it will follow in the later slide as well. There's one thing where you need to practice. I've showed you the Excel sheet as well. Yeah. Are you going to practice on the Excel sheet you have? Are you going to, for discursive requirement, are you going to, for increase your typing speed, are you going to do it on the word processing sheet like this? Yeah. It's better to type here. Okay. But there's one another platform which is closer to, which is like a real exam window, CB exam window. Better to do practice on Excel as well as Word so that you, when you go in the industry, you know how to use Excel. Whereas, as I've told you, there are less features in that exam window, which is exam spreadsheet. So better to do your practice in CB practice platform. Okay, you can Whatever paper you would be registered for, accordingly you will be given the access via my ACCA to the CB practice platform. It is exam focused, and here you can do exam under exam conditions. You can assign questions yourself, you can mark your answer later on, compare your answer with the marking scheme and everything. So it's a very good platform you guys can do, and we will be practicing we will be practicing there as well. So it is very important that you throughout your practice, throughout your course, you do your practice in your CB practice platform. Okay, and then there is constructive response windows as well, that you can directly where are there empty constructive response sheets, spreadsheets, empty spreadsheets, and empty word processing sheets and spreadsheets. You can use that as well. Okay, student questions are that we cannot save our answer there. You can do that. Definitely, it doesn't save your answer, but what you can do, you can take the screenshots of your answer. For example, you have done the calculation, how to take the screenshots function and print screen will actually let you copy your screen, and then you can paste it in your Excel sheet, control V, by using control V, and you can actually save your responses and try to do one question at least 5 to 6 times so that you get to know your mistakes. And then final version is actually worth, yeah, and you have overcome the problems you were initially facing. So practice on screen reading. Yeah, we are it's better to get the PDF copies. I have PDF copies in my of books and kits in my classroom. On screen reading is really important. In a CB practice platform, there would be question coming up on your screen on one side, and on the other side there would be a spreadsheet or word processing sheet as per the requirements, numerical and discursive requirements. So reading the question on the screen rather than doing it on a physical book or a kit and then writing on a register, I would really discourage it. Okay, on screen reading and then doing it on the exam windows would actually help you a lot. Okay, student make this mistake. They do their work on their register. They're in habit of doing that. At times in remote exams, you are even not given a rough paper, and then in your CB window, there is a scratch pad. Scratch pad is a window just like a notepad where you can note down your workings. You can, in the planning time, you can jot down the important points. So scratch pad is used as a rough paper. Even in remote exams, you're not allowed a rough paper, physical rough paper. So rather than that, you're required to use that scratch pad. So on-screen reading and writing, that's what I encourage by using CB practice platform under exam conditions. Student, they do the exam. Okay, even if we're doing a mock, they do it in 4 hours. Like, what are you trying to achieve? Even while practicing a question, I told you for 20 marks, don't go beyond 36 minutes. What are you trying to achieve if you are doing practicing and you're taking 1 hour each? And there's no continuous improvement because you're not practicing much. So every time you time yourself requirements accordingly, and then time yourself and do practice under time condition, under exam conditions, right? Practicing under exam conditions. Okay, 1.5 minute per 1 mark rule. As per 1.5 minute per 1 mark rule, don't spend more time, otherwise you won't be able to complete this paper. It's a very time constraint. There's a lot of time constraint in this paper. So what are you trying to achieve, like when you haven't got attained the right learning curve before your exam? Okay, another thing is examiner report question or real past paper questions, but it comes with examiner analysis and commentary that what have mostly student made what mistake and why they selected a certain answer which was wrong. Then another important thing are the action verb. What are the action verb? I'm going to tell you what are, and self-evaluate your answer. I've told you a lot as per examiner marking scheme. In the end, there are read the mind of the marker. There are sessions, live sessions as well, and then there are PDF documents for that. It's a document you can read as well. It's reading the mind of the marker. It actually tells you, examiner tells you different scripts of the paper, different scripts of the students, and then they show the marks they have given to a good script or a bad script. and then they tell you what is in the marker mind, what it expects from a student. So it's a very handy dandy document you can go through before in the revision phase. You can go through that. And the technical articles I've missed. That's an important thing as well. In my course, I have given links to a lot of technical articles, and sometimes my slides, my courses actually, those are the articles, technical articles from the topics written by the examining team. So those are very good. At times they practice questions. At times the illustrations they take are real exam questions. Are just like that. Okay. Now reasons for failure and tips and tricks. Okay. Not following a comprehensive study plan. I told you dedicated 2 to 3 hours per day initially, and later on, depending upon your aptitude, you need to spend 8 to 10 hours before your exam, and in which you need to do a very good practice like daily, starting from 15 section A, 2 to 5 section B type questions, and one section C type question, and later on move 5 to 15, and later on 15 to 20, and then 5 to 10, and then at least 3 to 4, or even maybe in the end, in one day, maybe you would be doing 10 constructive response questions, okay, just to keep up the good practice, okay. And then expect, if you follow such a dedicated plan and if you follow such a dedicated practice plan, is there any way, and you apply, do it under exam conditions on CB practice platform, is there any way you can fail the paper? No. Okay. And you learn the time management. And why this the problem of time management? Because you don't follow the plan, as I told you, 1.5 minute per 1 mark rule. And why you're not able to do it? Because you didn't do practice. Yeah, that's why you didn't achieve the required learning curve. Maybe still you're spending 2 minutes per 1 mark. So what kind of learning you have achieved throughout your course? So you need to achieve that. You need to overcome this time management problem, and you need to practice under exam conditions. Okay. When time is over, move on to the next question. Don't take time. Don't write beyond the time. Just move on. Time is over. Move on to the next question. Otherwise, you would be maybe that that question doesn't have a lot of weightage, and then you are taking the time from an important question that could give you a lot of marks. So you are just disturbing the time allocation. So allocate time to each part. 6 minutes I told you reading and planning time, and 30 minutes for calculation and discussion. Allocate time to each part. Okay. For example, how much sometimes you over calculate, like in performance calculation.